Folks, welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield Podcast. Here's something interesting that I was thinking about. You know, China is most certainly still a threat to us. They've been very quiet about what's going on in Iran with the United States. I think this is because President Trump has said, listen, when we get the oil from Iran, we're going to give you as much oil as you want, just like he said from Venezuela. And I think President Trump has set up this relationship with China that they are at least somewhat on their best behavior, and China's best behavior is not very good, by the way. This does not mean that they are not still waging war against us. But we are now going to war with Iran, which will not last very long, maybe 4 weeks, let's hope. And the United States is doing a hell of a job there, and I do believe this is about as America first as it gets. But we're doing this, one of the main reasons is because we don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb. But what if I told you China is working on something just as dangerous? In fact, many things just as dangerous. Bioweapons. We saw it with the original COVID. We now see that there's another virus out there that China is working on. China actually published this paper, so we've got to be a little careful on, is this really true, or are they just trying to scare us? And I don't really believe a lot of coming out of China, but this is frightening. It's a paper that says that China is working on a coronavirus that causes brain infections with a 100% fatality rate in mice. Now, can you imagine if it is a 100% fatality rate in humans? That is a bioweapon. And yet we focus on Iran's nuke. I think we still got to remain focused on China, what they're doing, what they're experimenting with. And we've also seen bioweapons here in the United States. We're going to talk about today on the program. I've got Dr. Kelly Victory with me from the Wellness Company. twc.health/Grant. That is the website I want you to go to. Use the promo code Grant for 10% off. I'm going to go back and tell you about the most important product that they have. There's a lot of important products, but I believe when it comes to saving your family, saving yourself from imminent harm, you got to have one of these medical kits on hand, and it's basically filled with prescription medications that you need, including ivermectin in this kit, antivirals, antiparasitics. You'll have them on hand. All right. twc.health/Grant. If you don't have one of these, you are not prepared. A lot of Stinchfield's Army members out there like to say, hey, we're prepared for anything. If you don't have prescription medications, you're not prepared. So it is basically that simple. I would urge you to go to twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code Grant for 10% off. All right. With that, folks, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, everybody, as promised, my friend Dr. Kelly Victory is here. Dr. Victory, it's so great to see you.
Thanks, as always, for having me, Grant.
All right, I guess first off, because Iran is the talk, I was very happy to see, I went to your Twitter page, as I normally do before I have you on the podcast, see what you're talking about. You agree with me that the war against Iran to stop them from having a nuclear bomb, take out their ballistic missile systems, take out their top command and control structures and human beings is about as America first as it gets, don't you?
I absolutely do. And I firmly believe that this is not a war against the Iranian people. This was a follow through on Trump's commitment that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And this is a bipartisan issue. The Democrats and the Republicans agreed in Congress that this is an imperative. We cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear warhead. And they, despite all of the attempts at diplomacy, which is a fool's errand, by the way, because diplomacy is not an option with those people, they would not back down. And Trump gave them forewarning. We had to take that out. This was not an attempt at, quote, regime change. This was not an attempt to get freedom for women in Iran. This was not an attempt to get them out from under the thumb of a totalitarian regime. Those things happen to be side effects of what happened, but that was not what this was about. This is as America first as it gets, when you are trying to assure that one of your geopolitical foes is not able to get a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. By no means do I mean this to be patronistic, but I just think it's so great. What group of doctors can have a doctor come on and talk so eloquently about all kinds of political situations? This really is a tribute to the Wellness Company, Doc, and I mean it. I'm not trying to be patronistic. It's just there's a lot of doctors out there that could not talk about the war in Iran like you just talked about.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I do pay a lot of attention to these things as well because I think they are critically important. Unfortunately, you may have seen on Twitter, I took it on the chin for saying that. People saying that this was a war of aggression, one more attempt at colonialism. I mean, that simply is not the case. And not because I am a firm believer in everything my government tells me, it's quite the opposite, Grant, but I've been following this for a long time. And as I said, this has been a bipartisan issue, and I think it should stay that way.
So we've got Iran. Now, by no means am I advocating dropping bombs on China, but I do believe what China is working on is as great a threat, if not maybe even more of an imminent threat to the United States with these bioweapons and this new study, albeit I'm skeptical of the study, but I still want to take notice and be aware of this. And I'll play a clip for you in a moment, but China is working on weapons that could do great damage to the United States, Dr. Victory.
And this, unfortunately, Grant, is not new. This has been going on for decades. Let's start with the fact that all respiratory pandemics have begun in Asia. And this is in part because the Chinese have been engaged in gain-of-function research for decades. They take viruses, bacterium, other pathogens, and they weaponize them. They create them so that they are more resistant to treatment. They're easier to transmit. They are capable of causing more severe disease in humans. They're capable of human-to-human transmission, and on and on. That's what gain-of-function research is, and it's one of the reasons it is so very serious and should not be allowed. In addition, the United States has had a dreadful over-reliance on China for pharmaceuticals for decades. We get the vast majority of our pharmaceuticals or their active ingredients from China, to a lesser extent from India. And that puts China, our greatest geopolitical foe, in a position to do multiple things: contaminate those pharmaceuticals, jack up the prices, refuse to send them to us at all. I mean, there are lots of ways in which they can impact healthcare in the United States. So this most recent study that we're talking about, that's actually linking a COVID virus to one that is capable of not only causing respiratory illness the way the last COVID virus did, but also allows it to cross the blood-brain barrier and cause encephalitis, brain inflammation and infection, resulting in death, at least in these mice. This is highly concerning.
Yeah. Let me play a clip. You mentioned the reliance on China for prescription medications. I did just pitch the emergency medical kit from TWC. This is one of the reasons why you got to have these on hand. Imagine if there was a shortage and we're not getting, very common antibiotics, which you'll have in the kit. Amoxicillin, for example, strep throat, and a whole host of other things. That's why you want to have one of those kits. All right, let me play this clip for you. Where the doctor spells it out what China's doing here. Listen.
Now, today I'll be talking about a study from China where they've identified a coronavirus that has got 100% fatality in mice. Of all the mice that were infected, they all died. Now, this is the paper here. It's a preprint paper. And I must say, I'm a little surprised it's been published because the situation in China is often, shall we say, not always amenable to full peer review. So I'm a little surprised to see this paper. I'm just wondering if someone's going to get told off for publishing it. Now, the death seemed to be caused by late-stage brain infection. So they got infection in the...
All right, I'm going to cut him off there. I'm going to continue playing it. But something interesting, I don't know if... Maybe you can help me with this. I actually believe China has an interest to release that study to say, hey, look at this. You guys better be scared of us. That's why I believe China would release that study, not because it wasn't peer-reviewed or was peer-reviewed or because somebody got gutsy to release it. I think China fully, that's propaganda right there. They're fully well within what they would want the world to believe, that we hold this virus and be very careful, don't tread on us, Dr. Victory.
Well, that's a reasonable theory, Grant. My rule number one regarding China is don't believe anything they say, followed closely by rule number two, which is don't believe anything they say. You're right. They have a vested interest in causing us to be fearful. They have a vested interest in putting out propaganda. And as I said, they have been the source of many, many previous infectious disease outbreaks. So why this was put out, I don't know. Were they disgruntled scientists who will soon be disappeared by the Chinese Communist Party? Who knows? But the reality is these sorts of studies are going on. This sort of laboratory manipulation is going on. And more concerning to me about this happening in China, Grant, is the involvement of the Chinese Communist Party in our own American institutions. Follow the money in terms of how much money is invested at Stanford, Yale, Harvard, Duke, big academic universities. Who's paying for the funding of those laboratories? In many cases, the monies can be traced back, at least in part, large part, to the CCP. And that means you have all of these Chinese students, Chinese nationals coming over here, studying in our scientific laboratories, doing research with American physicians on our soil. So don't think that these things are only happening in China. They're happening here in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, which is frightening. And then it raises the question, what is the United States' role in stopping this from moving forward? You know, we have more of an ability to stop things from happening here. I mean, we're discovering biolabs. Had one in Nevada. We had one in California. We can stop things here. Stopping things over there is a little harder. But as we see, we weren't only not trying to stop things over there before the pandemic. We were funding it over there. Fauci was sending money to China. Let me play a little bit more of him, and we'll continue this.
Lungs and the nose and the trachea, as you would expect, with a respiratory transmitted virus, but then they got better from that, but they died of brain infection. I guess we'd call it an encephalitis, a viral infection in the brain itself. Not a nice way to die at all. So again, I'm a bit surprised this was published, to be quite honest. And, you know, today a war's been started to prevent Iran getting nuclear weapons. These weapons potentially made from viruses are just as dangerous. And yet this dangerous research is going on and no one really seems to say much about it.
I think I agree with him. I think they could be just as dangerous, and I don't think there's a real focus on it.
Oh, I think they actually are more dangerous because they're insidious. When you're doing gain-of-function research or tainting medications, these are things that go under the radar, if you will. With Iran developing a nuclear weapon, enriching plutonium or uranium or whatever they're doing, that's more obvious. This sort of thing that goes under the guise of scientific research happening in our medical schools, medical laboratories, and these sorts of things don't end up being, under the microscope, if you will, until all of a sudden there's an outbreak, until all of a sudden people are getting sick from a medication, those sorts of things. So I think in many ways, the more insidious nature of what you're talking about, bioweapon development, is far more serious.
Yeah. It's interesting because in the Rumble chat, Shelley, who's one of our Stinchfield's Army captains, that's one of the moderators in the podcast, she said, you ready for this? Fauci to prison for life. Now, I can tell you there's a lot of Stinchfield's Army people that feel like that. And when you're talking about we didn't do anything, we're not looking at it, we're not focused on it, this goes all the way back to Fauci was actually engaged in funding it all. Are you okay or are you upset? I think I know the answer. It's rhetorical. But we've had no action on accountability for this. I mean, all these people have basically gone unpunished. I'm not here to criticize the administration. I think Trump is doing exactly as he promised, except on this front, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's the war that was waged against him and many other conservatives, the censorship war, the J6 war, from coming out of the DOJ. It just seems like we're waiting, and nothing.
No, you're right. This is a perennial problem, certainly with the Republicans. They say they're going to hold people to account, and they don't. We're still waiting for Hillary Clinton to be held to account, for scrubbing her data. We're waiting for the woman who testified against, Brett Kavanaugh and perjured herself. We're waiting for her to pay. And certainly Anthony Fauci, you can count Dr. Kelly Victory in the ranks of those who feel that he should be in prison for life for crimes against humanity. Not only did he perjure himself over and over again in front of Congress, but he absolutely was participant in funneling U.S. taxpayer dollars to the Wuhan lab in China through the Shell Corporation EcoHealth Alliance, trying to make it appear as if we were not continuing to do that research at a time when there was a moratorium placed on it under President Obama. Fauci absolutely was participant in the development of COVID-19 and the resultant pandemic that destroyed much of the world, certainly destroyed not only the economy in the United States, but was responsible for the deaths of millions of people and the loss of the lives and livelihoods of many, many more. So I'm a firm believer that we need accountability. Whether it will happen, we hear big talk from people who I generally respect, people like Rand Paul, who say that this is going to happen. But I sincerely doubt that it will, not only because of the pardons that were granted by Joe Biden as his last act of the auto pen as he left office, but also because I don't believe that there's enough motivation, if you will, in Congress, given the amount of money that all of them get into their coffers from Big Pharma on both sides of the aisle. It's in the millions and millions of dollars every year. And I think, therefore, that the follow through when it comes to something that would expose the fraud, corruption, and abject lies of Big Pharma, I think it's not going to be forthcoming.
Well, even you bring up the auto pen. I mean, here I am. I forgot all about the auto pen. And not that I forgot about it, but like, when is that going to be? People are going to be held responsible for that. Who was in the White House that was literally approving all of these fake signatures of a Joe Biden, auto pen? It's just such a lack of accountability. And, I was watching one of the big threats that I've been warning on, and not to toot my own horn, but before Alex Jones was going out there telling everybody he warned him first. I said we were going to have a sleeper cell terrorist attack in the United States the moment we started going after Iran. I said it early on, and lo and behold, not 8 hours after I said that, you had that shooting in Austin with the guy with the T-shirt. And Alex Jones had gave a similar warning. But fine, no big deal. I don't need to compete with him. But I warned about this. Well, the FBI gets on, and I guess my point to this is, we're making baby steps, like with the DOJ and the FBI. Mm-hmm. Under the Biden or Obama administration, they never would have even mentioned terror, right? Even with the guy that's the property of Allah, they still would not tell you that. So this FBI guy gets on. He says, well, we're looking into it. It's too early to make a determination, but he had property of Allah. At least he mentioned it, but I'm sitting there. Too early to make a determination. He's got property of Allah and an Iran flag T-shirt on. Like, it's not too early. Any reasonable guy can make a determination. But I guess we've made a little bit of a step. It's just, it's taking so long. Like, we're over a year now. And this Dr. Fauci and Deborah Birx and the other people that you mentioned, I just feel like I'm not convinced it's ever going to happen, Doc. I don't think it is, in fact, the more I look at it. And Rand Paul can crow about it all he wants. Unless the DOJ and Pam Bondi charge these people, nothing's going to happen.
I agree with you. Look, Deborah Birx, the scarf lady, she acknowledged in her book, she had the audacity to acknowledge in her book that they fundamentally lied to President Trump about the, quote, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. She said they knew that if they told Trump what they had intended to do, they told him the truth, they knew that Trump was an astute enough businessman that he would never have agreed to it, knowing the wet blanket it would throw on the economy. So she acknowledges that they lied to the president. There's a word for that. I call that treason. Where I come from, lying to the commander in chief in order to get what you want done is treasonous. But they are doing it with absolute impunity. They are stating these things. We now know Anthony Fauci has come out and acknowledged everything, certainly, that I said from day one. He acknowledged that social distancing was completely made up, something I said from the beginning. He acknowledges that masking was, again, completely foolish, did nothing and does nothing fundamentally to stop the spread of a respiratory virus. He acknowledges now that the vaccines didn't stop transmission, and on and on. Yet these are things that, I was certainly lambasted for, criticized, derided, kicked off of all of social media, had my medical license threatened over and over and over again. But here's Anthony Fauci, who has been put up on a pedestal, has never been held to account. And as you said, Grant, I suspect never will be.
It's interesting because he must know that at least the eyes are on him, because he's pretty much gone quiet. You don't hear from Dr. Fauci very often anymore, do you?
Oh, no. I kept saying he's like whack-a-mole. He'll show up somewhere else, likely on the payroll as a consultant for some pharmaceutical company. He got, why in the world would he get a pardon? If you haven't done anything wrong, why do you need a preemptive pardon? That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. So he's gone radio silent recently. And you have to remember, he's quite old. He, last time he practiced medicine, he was not a practicing physician. Last time he practiced medicine was before the CAT scan had been invented. No lie. I mean, that's
how old.
I think he's in his 80s now.
Okay.
He's perhaps late 80s. So he will never be held to account. He certainly made more than enough money to keep him and his family for generations to come very, very well off without him making any additional consulting dollars. He's just such a card-carrying narcissist that I thought for sure he'd want to be back in the limelight, but he may have deemed it, or his lawyers may have deemed it a little bit too risky for him to do so.
I think you just nailed it. I think his legal team had said, hey, you better lay low right now, brother, because last thing you want to do is go out there poking the bear. And anytime he opens his mouth is a big giant poke of the MAGA bear. So, all right, let me switch topics, because I know a lot of folks out there have kids. And I love the studies that tell you something that you pretty much already know, and somebody got paid big money to do these studies. But this study actually proves that screen time amongst children can actually do damage to your brain, like literal brain damage. Now, I know we always say it rots the brain. Well, this actually proves that it does. Let's watch this, okay? Here we go.
As parents, we already know it. Excessive screen time, excessive emotion. But what if it's much worse than that?
Can you see the screen all right? Yeah.
This is 5-year-old Rose. She was one of 60 kids to undergo an exhaustive study in the US, using an MRI machine to scan the brains of kids aged 3 to 5 years old. The results, truly shocking. Interactive screen time causes a loss of white matter in the brain.
Well, in the simplest terms, we could actually refer to as some measure of brain impairment or brain damage.
Professor Mike Nagel from the University of the Sunshine Coast has spent a career studying child brain development.
So white matter in the brain is a material called myelin. So what myelin does is it wraps around the axons of neurons and acts like an insulator, a conductor, not too dissimilar to the plastic coating of a wire. So if we're seeing deficits in myelin production early in life, we're probably seeing deficits in neural connectivity.
The study shows the more screen time a child is exposed to, the greater the loss of white matter.
What do you think of that, Doc?
Well, I think it's terrifying. And as you said, it simply reinforces what anyone with any common sense would know. that this is not doing a good thing for your child. It actually is causing brain rot. One of the things I find very concerning about this specifically, that there's a degradation in the amount of myelin, white matter, is that degradation in myelin is also part of what is behind other neurodegenerative diseases like multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, other things. So are we going to find out as time goes by that this is one of the reasons we are seeing an increase in some neurodegenerative diseases, whether it's Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or anything on that spectrum? So I think, again, these are studies that are very, very necessary, unfortunately, to prove scientifically and to document exactly what is happening to these kids. And, the screen is the ultimate pacifier. When I was growing up, it was, kids got pacifiers to keep them busy. Now it's a lot easier for mom to give the kid an iPad, an iPhone, or a screen to, it's the ultimate babysitter.
Yeah, it is. These YouTube shorts. I watch kids 8, 9, 10 years old just get lost in these YouTube shorts. I saw it on a post, but it was very interesting. It said the greatest threat to the alpha male and a high-functioning individual. That's what I would like to consider myself as in all of that. A high-functioning alpha male. But the greatest threat was scrolling through social media. And do you know, last night I was watching, here's another greatest threat for brain damage. I watched 3 hours of WWE World Wrestling Federation with my son. So after 3 hours of doing that, I was scrolling, and I noticed the clock went by. It was 30 minutes, and I was scrolling, and I thought of this thing. The greatest threat to the success of a high-functioning individual is scrolling. I said, I just wasted 30 minutes, and I don't even know what I was looking for. Right, I guess I'm looking for something. I'm waiting for something to stimulate something in me.
Right.
And, of course, it never comes, so you keep searching and searching and searching. So I don't think it's just kids. I worry that myelin they talked about, can that be disintegrated in adults?
Well, I don't think we've done that study. There's no question that it is highly, highly addictive. You keep going back. You keep wanting that charge. You want to find the thing that captures your attention. And so rather than sitting down and reading a book, having to understand a plot and reading through it, or even watching a movie that has nuances, you're looking for that quick fix. It is it's crack. It is crack cocaine. It is. You want the quick hit. You see the quick, interesting thing, and then you scroll on to the next one because the buzz wears off so quickly. On top of it, it has really disenfranchised huge swaths of the public, of the population. They call it social media. I call it anti-social media. You'll see groups of kids sitting on sofas 2 feet away from each other, but they aren't talking to each other. You see 2 adults at dinner table at a restaurant, each on their phones. It's not social media. It's anti-social media. It is stopping actual human-to-human interaction. And it's absolutely driven up the rates of depression and disengagement. People see things on Facebook, they see things on Twitter, they see things on Instagram, and they believe that it's real. And then the question is, why don't I have that beautiful family? Why am I not eating breakfast on a balcony in Maui like this person is? Why don't I have the beautiful whatever? As you're constantly comparing yourself to others in a way that's unrealistic.
And here's what's crazy, and I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. When I create reels on Instagram, I'm trying to make them engaging enough that you would have to stop and watch it. And I think about my first 3 words, and I think about how am I going to get somebody addicted to watching this? And even more, I'll just be honest with you. Yesterday, on social media, I made over $1,200 on social media with views and stuff, right? Not paid ads, but views. Now, that's just encouraging me to go keep posting more and figure out how to take advantage. I'm sorry, Stinchfield's Ari, but how to take advantage, capture you so I can get more views and I can make more money. And hopefully, the noble part of this is that I'm pushing a message that I want to move the country in the right direction. But there's, pros and cons to all of this. The question is, how do we balance it? It's almost nearly
Right.
impossible.
It is. And unfortunately, I think what we've got to do is just as an individual, because society's not going to do it. You have to do it as an individual. You have to set guidelines, limits that you absolutely will not breach, whether it's that you're going to leave your phone in the other room during dinner hour, whether you're going to turn it off, leave it in the other room when you go to bed at night, whatever it is, set the limits, because most of us never put that phone down. I find myself, on the treadmill, on the elliptical, still have my phone in case, something pops up. You never put it away, and it really isn't good. No one's going to do it for you. So it's about setting those limits yourself.
I think I need to take on the mentality of a bookie, a guy that takes bets, because I knew some bookies back in the day when I was working in New York on the commodities exchange. They never sports gambled. They took all the bets, but they never sports gambled.
Yeah.
Maybe my thing should just be, I'll just keep pushing content out there, but I'll never actually scroll through social media.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually part of it. And I am my own worst offender. So I've been starting to set limits myself in this way, because I find myself scrolling through because it's so quick. It's such a quick way to get an insight into what's going on. Yeah. As soon as, we dropped the bombs in Iran, I went to X to see, what are they saying? What are they saying? Rather than, frankly, even turning on the TV and waiting to get a more thoughtful news report. You're looking for that quick hit. Yep. So I think it's all about setting limits.
Hey, Doc, before I let you go, I've talked a lot, and it's too bad I didn't actually talk to you more about this. We need to actually really dig into this product, Shield, that you formulated, a cancer preventative. Am I safe to say that? Is that the goal of Shield?
Well, what it is an immune support. So it was developed as a result of my own experience, having been diagnosed with cancer, trying to take the things, supplements, and put together a group of very thoughtful things, more than a dozen different supplements, each of which have been proven, clinically proven, to enhance immune function and potentially to fight cancer. So I think it's appropriate for anybody who wants to improve their immune function, decrease their risk of ever developing cancer, or if you're in a position like mine where you actually had a history of cancer in the past and are trying to prevent a recurrence. So we know that our immune systems, Grant, are the first line of defense against cancer. Yes, they fight bacteria and viruses, but your immune system is supposed to recognize that first abnormal breast cell or colon cell or prostate cell and wipe it out before it ever takes hold. So in my mind, the real brass ring is about having an immune system that is always functioning at peak performance, not only because of cancer, but also because of all of the other environmental agents, toxins, and challenges that are out there.
How do you take a daily supplement?
It's a two-part package. It has a soft gel cap. You take soft gels, and then it comes with a stick pack, a hot or a cocoa mix that can be used hot or cold. You can put it in a smoothie or in yogurt, because there were so many ingredients that we wanted to include. It has everything from medicinal mushrooms, reishi and turkey tail mushrooms, berberine, olive leaf, oregano oil, ashwagandha. It's chocked full of immune support and, as I said, ingredients that have been shown clinically to fight off cancer.
It's great because, again, I talk about you as a doctor, as an MD, that doesn't poo-poo the idea of natural medicine either. A place for, both modern day medicine and natural medicine, and some of these natural products found in the wild that really have some great benefits to the human body, not poo-pooed by an MD.
Absolutely. And the reality is, and I'm not telling anyone what to do, whether or not any individual should try chemotherapy if it's recommended. I can tell you, chemotherapy agents do kill cancer cells. The problem, Grant, is they kill everything in between. They kill a lot of healthy cells, and they wipe out your immune system. So we really, in many ways, chemotherapy is a very rudimentary, it's like, it's trying to kill the fly on the wall with a shotgun. You wipe out everything. You might kill the fly, but you leave a gaping hole in the drywall. And that's not what I wanted to do. So I looked for things that could boost my immune system, potentially kill cancer cells without in any way harming the rest of my body and allowing my own God-given immune system to do what it was meant to do.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. I urge people to get the product Shield, and it's really congratulations on a great product and formulating it. Do you have a few minutes for me? Two or three more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. I want to play one more clip because I saw this, Gary Brecka, doctor, and I have been doing this. I add Himalayan sea salt to my water, and I saw great benefits from weight loss to energy increase, and it's pretty amazing. And I think it helps me get hydrated in a way that not just pounding water helps you get hydrated, but I want you to listen to this, and I want you to weigh in on this because I know you're into all this kind of stuff too. Listen.
So what I would say is probably 5 things that I would commit to doing on a regular basis. Number 1 is upon waking, I would drink a mineralized water. I would take 10 ounces of water and I would add either a Celtic sea salt or a Baja Gold salt to my water. The reason for that is that most of us are deficient in some or several of the trace minerals in our body, the boring ones, boron, manganese, molybdenum, selenium, and stir it up and just whack it back. The second thing I would do is...
You're not talking about table salt here?
No, not sodium chloride. No, I'm talking about Baja Gold sea salt. That's probably the best salt that you can put in the human body because it has all 91 trace minerals. It's tested down to 250 parts per billion for microplastics and glyphosates. Only about 75% of that sodium crystal is actually sodium. The rest of them is all of these trace minerals. You can get very close to that with Celtic salt, right? And if you can't get Celtic...
So I don't know if my Himalayan sea salt falls into that category or not, but what do you think of that assessment?
Well, there's no question that many people are deficient in some of the trace minerals. As he said, he was rattling them off. It's iron, zinc, manganese, selenium, boron. And part of the reason is because people have developed, you can't create these things in your body. You have to eat them through dietary sources. And because many people limit their diet, I have a very, very broad diet. I eat meat, I eat poultry, I eat seafood, shellfish, leafy green vegetables, I eat nuts. Many people don't do that. Somebody may have a nut allergy, so they're missing, a lot of trace minerals that are found heavily in nuts. Many people don't eat beef, which I do. Many people can't eat shellfish. So if you have a very, very broad diet like I do, I am less likely to be deficient in trace minerals. Doesn't mean I can't be. But people, if you're, for example, you're a vegan, you really need to be supplementing trace minerals because you've limited your dietary exposure to those things. I also know that a lot of people like you, Grant, have started using small amounts of these mineral salts and do find that they feel better. So it may well be that you were slightly, and most people don't test for them, that your average physician, when you go to get a lab test, isn't checking for all of the trace minerals. So I think it makes reasonable sense to be supplementing it.
Well, I have a wide variety diet as well. I like New York strip, Kansas City strip, ribeye. I like hard-boiled eggs. I like sunny-side up eggs. I like scrambled eggs. Very, very wide variety of my protein intake. Dr. Victory, it's so great to talk to you. I appreciate you spending a little time with us. We went over our normal allotted time, but you're kind to hang with me here.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Absolutely. And folks, let me remind all of you about the Wellness Company. So grateful for their sponsorship. Every Tuesday we kind of dig into health issues, and that's thanks to the Wellness Company. Don't forget, this is their prescription medication kit. Dr. Victory mentioned Shield, which I really, really urge you to take. And then, you know what, which is really popular. Now, I can track what you guys are buying when you watch these podcasts. This has been so popular. It's my number one seller. I don't know if it's whether the Wellness Company's number one seller, but it certainly is mine on this podcast. The number one seller has been Ultimate Spike Detox. Get that spike protein out of your system. And really, this is a great daily supplement as well. TWC.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. We will see you tomorrow on this show and tonight on the Real America's Voice show, a special election night coverage after my show. We'll have a normal show, and then Steve Bannon and I will take you through the evening doing election coverage. All right? That's going to do it for us. God bless all of you. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you soon.